I was sitting on the polished vinyl bench of the late-night bus, forehead pressed against the humming window, when the memory of that first text from Luca pulsed across my mind like a bruise coming up under skin. He had sent it 9 months earlier, a single line wrapped in confidence. Saw you reading Marquez at the flea market stall and had to know what you thought of the ending. In retrospect, it was equal parts charming and strategic. He'd clocked my weakness for Latin American fiction and leveraged it with the precision of a surgeon slicing along an old scar. That afternoon, I'd been helping my sister haul unwanted furniture out of her tiny studio, wrist deep in dust and nostalgia. So the thought of a stranger noticing me through that chaos felt like a small private rescue boat. We met for coffee that same evening in a converted greenhouse cafe that smelled of damp soil and rosemary steam. He listened intently, chin resting on long pianist fingers, dark hair curling around his ears in a way that suggested a permanent sea breeze. Luca told stories about his village on the Sicilian coast, about lemon blossoms the size of fists and markets that opened before sunrise, while I tried not to stare at the faint cleft in his lower lip. I left that cafe believing I had met a man carved from sincerity itself. Time dilated in cliched concentric circles after that. Early morning bakery runs where he insisted on paying, phone calls that stretched past midnight until my cheeks ached from smiling, his voice slipping between English and Italian when he got excited about food or football. 2 weeks and he appeared outside my office building with a bouquet of wild fennel because I had once mentioned how the smell of anise reminded me of my grandmother's pantry. The visit was impulsive, unnecessary, and entirely effective. By the end of the first month, he had toothbrushes in my bathroom and a pack of unfamiliar loose teas wedged beside my Yorkshire supply. He started folding my laundry with a ritualistic fastidiousness that both warmed and unnerved me, lining my socks in gradients of color like test tubes in a lab. I began to tell friends I finally understood what easing into love meant. No fireworks, just a steady rise and tide that leaves you treading water before you know you've stepped offshore. That feeling settled into routine. Weeknights. He cooked risotto while I typed deadlines at the kitchen table, apartment smelling of saffron and freelance stress. Weekends. We wandered estate sale warehouses hunting for vintage lamps because Luca claimed each room deserved its own moon. I caught myself daydreaming about travel plans, children, even a rescue dog we might one day name Cometa. All those fantasies felt not only possible but practically pre-approved, stamped and countersigned by whatever cosmic clerk handles wish fulfillment for people who paid their dues in previous heartbreaks. The first fissure was small, like the almost imperceptible snap of a hairline fracture in glass. He borrowed my debit card one Friday morning, just until my foreign transfer cleared, promising to Venmo me by nightfall. When the notification never arrived, I dismissed it. Bank errors, time zones, Mercury retrograde, pick your excuse. A second borrowed swipe surfaced a week later after brunch with his visiting cousin. On the Uber ride home, I joked that he was turning me into his personal ATM. He smiled thinly and said, "Some women find generosity attractive, you know." My stomach flipped, but the conversation stalled when he kissed the top of my hand in apology. The next day, he spent 4 hours fixing the lopsided cabinet door in my hallway, singing under his breath. I told myself the ledger of kindness was still overwhelmingly weighted in his favor. Spring turned into a damp, restless summer. Luca's immigration paperwork hit a bureaucratic snag, then another. He claimed the consulting company handling it required unexpected fees. Without hesitation, I fronted part of the cost because I believed in our shared future, because my savings account finally felt purposeful. He thanked me with a sunset picnic on the roof, chili oil strawberries and soft pecorino, rain clouds bruising the skyline, while he swore up and down he would pay me back. I fell asleep that night to the drum of stormwater in the gutters, heart swollen and simple. July arrived alongside his mama and papa, their suitcases clattering into my apartment like uninvited prop furniture. They spoke rapid Sicilian dialect I half understood from childhood tapes, praising the tidiness of my living room while scrutinizing the second-hand couch's frayed arms. We ate seafood spaghetti Luca prepared in my tiny galley kitchen. The parents exchanged compliments laced with something brittle I couldn't quite name. His mother noted how strong my laugh was, pressing her lips afterward as though tasting something oversalted. I offered coffee. She suggested herbal tea would be healthier per le Don che Vogliono Bambini. I smiled, felt the sting, poured the coffee anyway. The following evening, Luca's parents insisted on taking us out to a proper dinner at Il Candistory, a restaurant that required reservations weeks in advance and charged for bread like it was truffle shavings. Conversation flowed predominantly in their dialect, with Luca translating sporadically, mostly anecdotes about distant relatives or the mayor of their hometown. My name seldom surfaced. When it did, his father's glance flicked across me as though confirming a half-remembered invoice. I chalked up the discomfort to cultural gaps and the fatigue of hosting. On the cab ride home, Luca squeezed my knee, whispering that they adored me, they were just old-world nervous. I nodded, ignoring the hollow earthquake under my ribs. A week later, his parents flew back to Palermo, leaving the apartment emptier yet somehow heavier. On their final morning, Luca escorted them downstairs while I scrubbed leftover espresso cups. The lobby security camera feed played silently on my hallway monitor. I glimpsed his mother embracing him, then pointing upward, my floor, before handing him a sealed envelope. Luca tucked it into his jacket like contraband. When he returned, he was unusually quiet, scrolling his phone while chewing the inside of his cheek. That afternoon, he claimed a migraine and slept 6 straight hours. I discovered the hidden ledger by accident, though in hindsight my subconscious had been hunting. He'd left his laptop open on the dining table while showering. A spreadsheet labeled Bridge Fund sat in the taskbar. One click unveiled transactions. Weekly deposits from an email address I didn't recognize, withdrawals matching exactly the amounts he had asked me to cover for immigration, rent, groceries. In the memo field of each deposit, Grazie di cuor per il tuo sacrificio. There was also a tab named Exit Plan. I couldn't open it, password locked. Something inside me iced over. I snapped a photo of the screen and closed the laptop before he returned, smelling of eucalyptus shampoo and small evasions. That night I feigned exhaustion, slipped into bed early, listened to him typing in the next room. At 2 a.m. the glow under the door vanished. He slid beside me, breath warm with red wine I hadn't seen him drink. I kept my eyes closed. He whispered "Ti amo, dormi bene." The words leaked into the dark like faulty insulation. My reply lodged behind my teeth where it fossilized into resolve. 2 mornings later I told him I needed a weekend alone to finish a freelance project. He said he understood, that solitude refreshed the creative pulse. He packed an overnight bag, kissed my forehead, and left to stay at a friend's loft, Filippo, the sculptor who never answered my questions directly. The moment the front door clicked shut, I double-locked it, exhaled a breath I'd apparently been holding for months, and began excavating. Top dresser drawer, receipts from jewelry shops I'd never visited. Kitchen junk drawer, a second phone, Italian SIM removed. Bottom of the coat closet, a shoebox crammed with printed bank statements bearing both our names, forged signatures attesting I'd consented to joint credit. But the crown jewel was a paper folder hidden behind the water heater, its plastic sleeve labeled, "To file August 5th, my birthday." Inside, one-way plane tickets for Luca and someone named Chiara to Barcelona. Departing 2 days after my birthday, booked with my frequent flyer miles. I sat cross-legged on the laundry room tile, folders spread before me like guts from a broken bird, and let a roar of betrayal build in my chest. Then slowly I flattened each document, photographed it, and slid everything back exactly where I found it. I texted Luca, smiling selfie, thanked him for respecting my work retreat, told him I missed him already. He responded with a voice memo full of soft Italian endearments that tasted metallic in my ears. Saturday evening, when I knew he'd be halfway through dinner at Filippo's, I carried every sentimental relic of him, our Polaroids, pressed flower postcards, a monogrammed apron, into the courtyard incinerator. The flames licked photographs until our smiles curled into black lace. I watched arms folded until ash snowed across my sandals. Back in the apartment, I placed tiny adhesive microphones beside the smoke detectors and under the TV stand. The older security cameras still captured video. Now I would have audio too. I wasn't plotting revenge, I told myself. I was collecting truth insurance. Sunday night he returned with pastries scented of orange blossom and guilt. He said he'd been thinking about next steps for us, hinted at traveling home together soon, maybe investing in a little property near the water. I feigned delight, reminded him of my birthday coming up, suggested we host a small party, friends, neighbors, a few colleagues, very low-key. His eyes brightened like a thief who finds the window left open. I prepared invitations while he slept, digital cards with pastel watercolor lemons, RSVP required. I added Luca's new colleague Chiara B to the list using an address copied from the bank statement deposits. The evening before the party, I borrowed my friend Lydia's baby blue Polaroid camera and set it on the entryway shelf, film loaded and ready. Throughout Monday I baked ricotta pear tarts, rosemary focaccia, miniature arancini. The smells formed a nostalgic siren song Luca couldn't resist. He circled the kitchen praising my inimitable talento. I focused on arranging slices of blood orange on a platter, my smile as carefully placed as the citrus. Guests threaded in at 7, laughter collecting in corners like confetti. Luca poured wine, cheeks flushed with hostly pride. At 8:30 I tapped my glass, thanked everyone for celebrating the final year of my 20s, announced I'd prepared a surprise photo montage. Luca perked up. He adored visual tributes that centered him. I hit play on the TV. Instead of baby pictures, the screen filled with a pause still. Luca's father raising a glass, subtitles beneath translating his commentary about free housekeeping. Gasps ricocheted. Luca's wineglass hung midair. I clicked again. The next slide showed a spreadsheet snapshot, Luca's secret deposits highlighted. The room temperature plunged. Luca sputtered, claiming context, joking, pleading. I raised the Polaroid and snapped his face at the precise moment recognition melted into terror. The camera whirred, spit out truth in a square frame. I told him the party was over. A neighbor escorted him outside in bewildered silence. I locked the door, turned to my friends, and lifted the last tart toward them in toast. The room exhaled. Somewhere in the hallway Luca shouted my name, voice shredding against closed doors. I pressed play once more. The security footage of his parents' dinner filled the screen again, its volume low but unrelenting. We listened together, to their laughter, to my awakening, to the long overdue sound of a woman ending her own fairy tale. I drifted to sleep that night on the living room sofa, Polaroid balanced on my chest like a talisman. Outside, sirens dragged themselves along distant avenues. Inside, my phone vibrated with Luca's unread apologies piling up like junk mail. I turned it face down, breathed in the faint scent of burnt paper still lingering from the courtyard, and let my muscles unclench one by one until dawn slipped under the curtains and told me I was free. I woke to the slow mechanical groan of the garbage truck beneath my window. The kind of graceless sound that normally grated but today felt mercifully ordinary. An affirmation that the world kept grinding forward no matter whose private universe had imploded the night before. My phone rested face down on the coffee table. For a long minute I refused to flip it over, fearing the digital spill of Luca's desperate notifications. Instead I shuffled to the kitchen, made oat milk coffee that tasted vaguely of cardboard, and stared at the faint ash smeared across the balcony tiles. It struck me that in every disaster film there's always a quiet establishing shot after the explosion. Dust swirling, distant sirens, a lone dog sniffing at rubble, before survivors crawl out. This was that frame. I rinsed the cup, set it in the rack, then finally checked the phone. 93 messages, 7 missed calls, 1 voicemail already transcribed by the service. I love you, please understand I was scared, we can fix this, answer me. I deleted them with the same flick I used to clear store coupons. Bridget arrived carrying florist shop croissants and the steely energy of a woman who had already power walked off her anger. She surveyed the living room strewn with half-stacked chairs and empty wine glasses, whistled low, then rolled up her sleeves. We cleaned without speaking at first, each swipe of a cloth erasing Luca's fingerprints from glass. Each garbage bag swallowed fragments of last night's shock. When the apartment finally smelled of citrus cleaner and open windows, Bridget curled onto the couch and said, "So what's the next move? Police? Lawyer or witness protection cabin in Montana?" I laughed, felt something unclench at the base of my throat, and admitted I hadn't plotted beyond the reveal. The evidence I had collected, screenshots, audio, forged signatures, felt suddenly heavy in a manila envelope on my desk. I could bury him financially, maybe even legally, but some weary part of me wanted only distance. We drafted a practical list. Freeze the joint card he'd forged, alert the airline to fraud on those mileage bookings, change my online banking passwords, file a statement at the station about potential identity theft. Bridget dialed the bank while I showered. She spoke with curt authority that made me love her more fiercely than any sister. By noon the account was locked and a fraud investigation underway. At 2 I sat across from a detective whose eyes flicked between me and the folder of evidence. She listened without interruption, typed briskly, then asked whether Luca had ever been violent. I told her about the wrist grab, the raised voice, the way he'd shoved past friends at last night's party. She nodded, explained I could file for a temporary protective order if I felt threatened. I left the precinct with paperwork tucked against my ribs and the hollow awareness that official procedures can't stitch a heart, but they can build a legal perimeter around one. Over the next 3 days, Luca's presence flickered like a dying bulb. Sporadic knocks on my door I ignored, flowers left outside that wilted unwatered. One melodramatic letter slid beneath the threshold comparing us to constellations destined to realign. I saved it in a plastic bag for the detective, partly for documentation, partly because someday I might need to marvel at how delusion can masquerade as poetry. Chiara emailed me once, brief and strangely formal, apologizing for her partial involvement. She claimed Luca had promised her funding for an art residency in Barcelona, that she'd never intended harm. I responded with a single line: when someone shows you forged wings, check their pockets for wax. On Friday afternoon, Luca was officially charged with identity fraud intent, low level but enough to put a tremor in his plans. A court date was set for 6 weeks out. The detective called to inform me Luca had signed the paperwork acknowledging the protective order. He was prohibited from contacting me directly or appearing within 100 yards of my home or workplace. That evening I lay on the living room rug staring at the ceiling fan's slow revolution, feeling each rotation pass from terror to relief, until eventually the relief lingered longer than the fear. Work became a safe harbor. My cubicle felt smaller than I remembered, but the thrum of spreadsheets and copy requests grounded me. Colleagues asked gentle, gossipy questions about the aborted birthday party. I answered with vague nods and redirected conversation to office coffee politics. Marcus, the coworker Luca had nearly punched, surprised me at lunch with a chocolate croissant balanced atop a stack of invoices. Your ex owes me a shattered ego, he joked, but I'll settle for you letting me buy you coffee sometime when you're ready. I smiled, promised I'd think about it, then actually did think about it for the rest of the afternoon, startled by the tiny flicker of interest like a pilot light refusing to die. Therapy sessions twice a week were mandatory self-excavation. My therapist, Dr. Huang, guided me through timelines of red flags I painted white, asked why I equated unconditional support with silent self-erasure, and reminded me survival instincts are worth celebrating, not shaming. We practiced scenarios. What emotion surfaces when you imagine Luca thriving elsewhere? What does forgiveness look like if it doesn't require reconciliation? One evening I left her office and walked the long route home past the waterfront where street musicians looped melancholic jazz. I tossed Luca's last house key into the river, watched it spin once, then sink without ceremony. A week before the hearing, Luca's cousin messaged me. He left for Palermo last night. Nobody here can reach him. My first reaction was suspicion, another manipulation? But flight records confirmed Luca Gemelli boarded a Rome-bound plane. His lawyer petitioned for a delay. The judge declined, issuing a warrant should he fail to reappear. My phone vibrated with news alerts in legal vernacular, none of which could articulate the mingled sigh of relief and anticlimax that flooded me. He was gone, at least physically. The ghost might take longer. I spent the unexpected quiet reclaiming corners of life he'd colonized. I sold the vintage lamps we'd scavenged, used the cash to repaint the bedroom walls a deep Baltic blue. I replaced the broken cabinet door with open shelving and filled it with cheap terracotta mugs that felt solid and unapologetic. I deleted the playlists we'd cooked to and subscribed to an online pottery class, letting clay spin centrifugal beneath my palms, mud and water mapping new valleys of sensation. Bridget came over Saturday nights with wine and glossy magazines. We sprawled on the floor rating the unrealistic interiors while plotting a modest girls' trip to Lisbon once both our finances recovered. The first genuinely joyful laugh slipped out one Sunday morning when I tried making pancakes shaped like constellations and ended up with a scorched blob resembling a lopsided heart. I texted the photo to Marcus, who had become a lunch break confidant, and he replied with an image of his attempt, which looked like a shoe print. He suggested a pancake throwdown. The following weekend, I said yes before anxiety could veto. Saturday arrived with cool misting rain. Marcus showed up carrying local roast beans and an awkward grin. We cooked, we made a comedic mess, and when flour dust settled, he stood by the sink drying plates while telling me about his childhood on a rural orchid farm. Something about the story's delicate impossibility, quiet rows of color in humid glass houses, calmed a part of my nervous system I hadn't realized still braced for impact. After dishes, he asked if he could hug me, no pressure. I said yes, stepped into his arms, and was startled when my shoulders didn't tense, when I didn't flinch at the anticipation of being held. Night edged into dawn before he left. A chaste goodbye because pacing mattered, but my apartment retained the faint note of his cedar aftershave instead of Luca's sandalwood ghost. I opened the windows, let new air circulate, and realized I was humming. 3 days later, I received an official envelope from the Italian consulate forwarded through my attorney. Luca had voluntarily relinquished any claim to share property and acknowledged fraudulent use of my identity, part of a plea deal negotiated abroad to avoid extradition. He was banned from applying for re-entry visas for 5 years. I signed the acceptance forms, notarized them during lunch, then took myself to the tiny Korean bakery near work for a slice of matcha cake. I messaged Bridget a photo of the empty plate captioned, "This is what closure tastes like." Spring cycled back. Cherry trees burst in cliché pink along the avenues. I allowed myself to browse travel blogs again, bookmarking affordable hostels in cities whose names tasted sharp and new on my tongue. Tbilisi Valparaiso page. Marcus and I navigated the gentle terrain between friendship and something more. We attended a poetry slam charity event where he surprised me by reading a piece about orchids surviving frost. His hand shook but his voice held. Afterward, under string lights, he admitted he'd nearly given up on dating after a brutal divorce 2 years prior. I traced the callous line on his palm with my thumb and felt the symmetry of scars healing against one another. One May afternoon, Bridget burst into my office waving 2 discount airline tickets to Lisbon mid-June. I laughed, said yes, then panicked about money until a deposit hit my account. Reimbursement from the bank for fraudulent charges plus a goodwill stipend. Karma apparently sometimes partners with corporate liability insurance. The trip became a sunrise of tile roofs and custard tarts, Bridget and I dancing to street fado, my lungs opening wider with each Atlantic gust. On our last evening, I stood on the Miradoro de Senora do Monte watching the city's lights ripple gold across terracotta, and realized I no longer measured time in relation to Luca. There was only now, kaleidoscopic and unsectioned. Back home, therapy tapered from twice weekly to monthly. Dr. Huang noted my posture had changed. I sat with shoulders unhitched, sentence endings no longer rising in apology. She asked what lesson I'd tattoo invisibly on my future self. I said, "Trust is earned, curiosity is oxygen, and love should never require translation fees." She smiled, wrote a final note, and told me she hoped to bump into me someday at a pottery exhibition. The night before my 30th birthday, Marcus surprised me with tickets to an outdoor film screening, Casablanca on a rooftop. We sat wrapped in one blanket, city lights making halos around the projector dust. When Ilse boarded the plane, I felt Marcus's hand find mine, neither of us flinching at the echo of one-way tickets. Afterward, we wandered to a 24-hour diner, ordered greasy fries, and he asked whether someday I'd like to see Sicily. I considered the coastline I'd only heard about through Luca's curated stories, imagined lemon groves minus the bitterness, and said yes, but let's stop in Marseille first because I've never seen bouillabaisse done right. He grinned, pulled out his phone, typed a note to remember. Weeks slipped into a collage of minor happinesses. Monday pottery class where my cups finally formed with symmetrical walls, Thursday trivia where our team, the Pancake Nebulas, won second place, Sunday mornings lounging on Marcus's couch listening to records he rescued from his dad's attic. I still had moments when Luca's voice replayed, a phantom limb of shame, but they grew faint like a song overheard from another apartment, recognizable yet powerless. Late August delivered one final epilogue. A certified letter arrived from Luca's lawyer. Enclosed was a cashier's check for the exact amount he had siphoned from my account, plus interest calculated daily from the date of withdrawal. No apology included, only legal phrasing about fulfillment of restitution. I deposited it, then donated a third to an immigrant support nonprofit that teaches financial literacy. It felt fitting. Turn his manipulation into someone else's anchor. On the first cool evening of autumn, Marcus and I hosted friends for dinner in my apartment, now our apartment since he'd moved in slowly, a toothbrush at a time, conscious of ghosts. Bridget toasted to new chapters. I raised my glass of sparkling water and felt the room's laughter ripple soft and unforced. When the guests were gone, dishes soaking, windows cracked to let in that crisp promise September carries, Marcus wrapped his arms around me from behind, rested his chin on my shoulder, and asked if I believed in happy endings. I thought about endings and beginnings braided so tightly they're indistinguishable, about the line I'd walked from naivete to vigilance to something steadier than either. I told him I believed in honest middles, in choosing every day to stay kind without staying blind. He kissed the spot behind my ear where worry used to live, nodded like that was the best story he'd ever heard, and in the hush that followed the city felt infinite and ordinary and exactly enough.